everyone, and welcome to Wednesday. And you know what that means. If it's Wednesday, then it is Awesome Vegans Wednesday. I'm Elysabeth Alfano, and this is the Awesome Vegans Influencer Series. Now, if you've been with me before, and many of you have, because we all love Jane Unchained, and we're always here together on 1 p.m. at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays for the Plant-Based Business Hour and 1 p.m. on Wednesdays for Awesome Vegans, you know that on Wednesdays, I also pre-tape my radio show. So yes, it's the Awesome Vegans Influencer Series, but you're going to hear me say things like, hey, welcome back to the Elysabeth Alfano radio show. It's one of those exciting Awesome Vegans Wednesdays because I have a wonderful person in the studio with me today. Rip Esselstyn is here with me, and I'm so very excited about it. I'm going to take Rick off for just a second, and I'm going to read the news like I always do on my radio show, and we're going to kick it off from there. So here we go, folks. 1, 2, 3. It's the Elysabeth Alfano radio show, and thanks for joining me on WCGO. Now, if you can't always belly up to the radio station and go to 1590 AM and 95.9 FM on your dial, doesn't matter. You can always listen to the Elysabeth Alfano show on WCGOradio.com, the WCGO Facebook page, or you can say, hey, Alexa, play me WCGO. You also might say to yourself, oh my gosh, the Elysabeth Alfano show is the only plant-based radio show in the nation. How come my local station doesn't have the Elysabeth Alfano show? We want some plant-based radio. Well, I feel ya. So tell your station to get the Elysabeth Alfano radio show from the Smart Talk Radio Network. It's accessible to all stations across the United States. Okay, so if you are with me, then you know that every show I read you some news, and oh gosh, has there been some news. The New York Daily News says that there's a bill that has been proposed in New York City and to New York State to ban all of its wet markets. There are approximately 80 wet markets in New York. Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal and State Senator Louis Sepulveda introduced a bill on Tuesday that would end live markets or wet markets in response to the coronavirus. This comes on the heels of learning that things like feces, blood, and body parts are regularly littered in public streets in front of the markets, which can often happen just steps away from homes, playgrounds, schools, and other businesses, says NY Class Executive Director Edinta Bernkrant. So, of course, we don't want that happening in our communities. And it's not just New York, of course, and it's certainly not just China. It's also places like Chicago and Los Angeles. So I will keep you posted on that. The Financial Times has said that during coronavirus, specifically the week of April 18th, plant-based food was up 200% compared to meat, which was up about 30 to 39%. And that's already during an 8-week period when plant-based meats have been up 265%. Of course, this is no surprise to us because we are watching the Beyond Meat stock go through the roof. Beyond Meat had earnings yesterday, and their stock reflected that today. It is up, as of the time of this recording, up 23%. There's some analysts that actually have been trying to downgrade it. Oh, get with the program and understand the news, because that's just not how the world is going, my friends. My last bit of news is going to be some sports news, which is going to let me allow my next guest to come right on because it's a natural segue. Michael Phelps, we know him, Olympic medalist. He is now the face of soy milk, silk soy milk. And he says, I've enjoyed soy milk for years, and I'm excited to be working with Silk while also helping to support Feeding America. He's not the only gymnast or the only athlete with Silk. There's also gymnast Allison Reisman, who says that she's enjoyed the benefits of incorporating more plant-based meals into her diet over the past few years, and Silk soy milk has been a great source of protein to keep her fueled and focused. I love that. Thanks, Silk. That is some exciting news. Okay, so that's the news, but really it's fun to bring in my star guest today. Rip Esselstyn is known for being so many things. I'll say a triathlete and also a New York Times bestselling author. Hey, Rip, thanks for being with me. And also you are the creator of Plant-Strong. So thanks for being with me today.
Thanks for having me, Elysabeth with a Y.
That's a YS to you, sir.
Yes.
Okay, so take us back a little bit before we really dive into the summit that you have going on May 15th to May 17th, Plant-Strong Primer. I kind of want to get a sense for who you are. Vegans know and love you, but maybe some of the flexitarians don't have that down yet. Tell us how you got started on your plant-based journey.
Yeah, so I started eating Plant-Strong back in 1987.
Visionary.
1987, after I graduated from University of Texas at Austin. My father's research at the Cleveland Clinic showing that you could actually metabolize away the plaque formations in your arteries just by eating a whole food plant-based diet was about 4 years in the making. And he already kind of had what's called proof of concept, that we as human beings could actually do something as crazy as just through food, right? Not a drug, not a procedure, through food, reverse heart disease. And so at the age of 23, I was not so arrogant to think that I was immune to this heart disease. My grandfather had his first heart attack at 42. And I at 19 had a cholesterol that was in the low 200s. So I jumped on board at 23, and I've been eating this way for almost 34 years now. And then after a 10-year career as a professional triathlete, I swam at the University of Texas. So I had a swimming background, like Michael Phelps, who I'm glad to hear is embracing, some plant-based things. It's a shame that he wasn't doing it earlier, because his world records would have been that much faster, and he would have that many more gold medals, I'm sure, if he had been plant-based.
I agree.
Yes. But so I became a triathlete full-time triathlete for over 10 years, became one of the top 10 at what's called the International Distance Triathlon, and fueling myself exclusively on whole plant-based foods so I could recover faster, train harder, all those wonderful things. And then after that, I decided it was time for me to finally grow up and get a real job. And that's when I decided to become a firefighter for the city of Austin. And that was in 1997 that I got on board. And I can tell you, as a firefighter, I thought that every shift we'd be making a big old barn burner. We'd be going in, slaying the dragon. But the reality is, and any firefighter will tell you this, 80 to 90% of our call volume, we are responding as emergency first responders, as EMTs, to the absolute dearth of heart attacks, obesity, lifting assistance calls, low blood sugar from type 2 diabetes. When we have people, we take their medical history and we hear about all the shots across the bows they've had with cancer, all about the medications they're on, the prescription drugs. So we see it up close and personal, this chronic Western disease, and how it's hammering not only America, but each city and town in America.
And children. I mean, you're now seeing type 2 diabetes in children. You never saw that before.
No. And you'd be amazed how many of our runs we made that were on teenagers, that were on people in college that had type 2 diabetes, that obviously used to be called adult onset diabetes, but because so many kids are coming down with it, they had to rename it.
Yes, it's distressing to hear that you, as a firefighter, what you really ended up taking care of was not firefighting, but actually, as you say, EMT, emergency technology medical assistance for those in need, basically from their diets. That's kind of shocking.
Yeah. It's very unfortunate. And you have no idea how many of these people I wanted to reach out and help and say, listen, you know what, there's a much better path that you can go on. But of course, we didn't have the time or the resources back then to help people in that way. And it's one of the reasons why after I wrote my first book, The Engine 2 Diet, that I retired from firefighting after 12 years. And I partnered with Whole Food Market stores to basically use Whole Foods as a bully pulpit to help get this message out of helping people and saving lives. And it's really remarkable how many how many firefighters have reached out to me?
We're going to get into it right after break. We'll come right back.
Woo!
Hey, everybody. Thanks for being with me and being patient on the Elysabeth Alfano show. We're going to get right back into it. And now we've got Rip for a long time. So I really want to get into the details. Let me just introduce you again, Rip, and we will start right away because I do want to talk about your dad for just a second, but we'll get into it. Thanks for being with me. It's the Elysabeth Alfano show right here on WCGO. I have New York Times bestselling author, triathlete, firefighter, all-around great guy, and very smart guy at that, Rip Esselstyn, here with me not in the studio, but in our virtual studio. Right before we went to break, we were talking about your journey, Rip, of starting basically right after college. You were an athlete in college, but pretty much right after college, you started on a plant-based diet. Of course, you were no stranger to the research because your father is really the pioneer here of reversing heart disease. He was proving this way in the 80s, so the mid 80s even, he had this research about proving how to reverse heart disease through a plant-based diet, food as medicine, which we'll talk about a lot today. So you came to it sort of easily, I'll say, and that it wasn't that foreign of a concept for you. You went on to be a triathlete with this plant-based diet, 10 years strong, and then you went to become a firefighter. And we left right before break talking about how what you really did as a firefighter wasn't so much put out the fires, but was attending to people fainting or just other daily life interruptions because of their diet.
No, exactly right. So let me just expand on that. So we would go on these 911 emergency calls for people that had chest pain, for people that had angina, for people that had shortness of breath, for people that actually had keeled over, right? And they had flatlined, and so now we're pumping on their chest. We're intubating. We're doing whatever we have to do to try and bring these guys back to life. And I can tell you the percentage is not very good. I think that I probably tried to bring back over 150 people, and of those 150, I think we had maybe three or four saves where we were able to bring them back.
Virtually everyone dies.
Oh, when you get there and they're flatlined, right? So they're not breathing, they don't have a pulse.
Yes.
Yeah, and you do everything you can, but no, it's usually it's not good. So, but the long and short of it is there's a better way, right? Let's not pollute our bodies with the meat, the dairy, the processed refined foods. So we don't ever have to be in this situation where you have firefighters, where you have EMTs, where you have paramedics. They're trying to basically bring you back to life because the odds are not very good.
You're basically a mobile emergency room at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it bears saying that to connect the dots here. So as firefighters, we're seeing people with heart disease, with diabetes, people that are obese, people with hypertension, people with Alzheimer's, people with strokes.
Right.
And let me just say that, if you look at the stats right now, 97% of the people that have perished because of COVID-19 have perished because they have some sort of an underlying comorbidity. So they have 1 to 2 to 3 typically of these underlying health conditions. And I think that we all know that 80% of these diseases are lifestyle created. You can shore up your defenses. You can shore up your immune system simply by doing something as drop dead simple as eating a whole food plant-based diet. And now you're not exposing yourself to the risk of being hospitalized and death from not only COVID-19, but any other potential pandemic that's coming down the pike. And unless we really learn our lesson here, right, and we can clean up our act, we can move away from meat, these zoonotic diseases, we're going to have another one, who knows, right? Another 3, 4, 5, 10 years, but we'll have a strategy. As a country, this should be our primary strategy. It shouldn't be, right, to wait for the cure, wait for the vaccine, to take preventative medicines, right? What it should be is everybody, let's eat fruits, vegetables, whole grains, beans, right? We're going to shore up our defenses. We're going to eat this diverse amount of fiber that's going to and what I just learned, I have a podcast called the Plant-Strong Podcast from Dr. Will Bolshewitz, right? Who's a gastroenterologist. He's brilliant. Was that 70% of our immune system resides in our guts. In our gut, 70%. And what's the best way to form a really strong, healthy, basically microbiome and gut? You got to eat a diverse amount of plants to get all that different types of fiber. And so his recommendation, and I'm going to lay it out there right now, is if you're not getting more than 30 different types of whole plant-based foods into your diet on a weekly basis, you're not getting enough. And that includes, nuts, seeds, herbs, stuff like that. But I mean, just in my breakfast cereal this morning, I had 12 different types of whole plant-based foods.
Of course you did.
Yeah. Yeah.
I want to just backtrack a second because you have unpacked a lot of stuff and I want to make sure that people hear it. So basically you're saying, the numbers aren't good out there for people, not just those who have flatlined that you're trying to save, but obviously the rest of us who are eating these very unhealthy meat and dairy heavy diets. You haven't said it exactly, but I think it really bears letting everyone know. And please don't be embarrassed because I didn't know until I went vegan. Meat has no fiber. You cannot have a healthy diet without fiber. We have these incredibly long intestines. And when you eat something with no fiber, it just is going to sit there for 2 or 3 days. This is the opposite of what you're talking about, which is a healthy diet, including, I've never heard this one before. So this will be the breakout session from our interview, that you need 30 different types of varied plants before. I've never heard that before. Plants and fiber, whole plants, of course. Yes. Yeah. And that is, just to clarify again for people, plants is where you get your protein. Animal meat, animals do not have protein. They eat plants. That's how they get their protein. So just skip the animal and all the heart disease and diabetes and high blood pressure that can come from it, and just go directly to the plants. Get your fiber there, get your protein there. So let's talk a little bit about, you're telling us, and we're all with you, because most people listen here are flexitarians, and I love you. I love you for trying to work in more plants and work out the meat. But there can probably, I'm just guessing here, be no more meat heavy group than a bunch of firefighters. And you took your firefighters, Engine 2 in Austin, Texas, you took them plant-based. And this was long before the Game Changers came out. So how did that go?
Well, I can tell you that I was very patient. I mean, and I mean that honestly. I mean, you wouldn't believe how many firefighters tried to break me, but I had you could not imagine a more hostile environment to be plant-based than a fire station in Austin, Texas, right? I mean, Texas is it's one of the meat capitals of the world. Yes. But when I first came out, I came out to Fire Station 1, which is the animal house of all fire stations in Austin, Texas. There are 2 engines and a truck company there and an EMS unit that runs out of there. So usually at any one point in time, there are 18 firefighters there, typically all men. So a lot of testosterone. Yeah. A lot of practical joking going around.
Sure.
And so, but I was there for 5 years, the first 5 years, and I held tight to my guns. Right, I didn't break. And it was then that I went to Fire Station 2, which is, why my first book is called The Engine 2 Diet, because that's where we had this experiment with these firefighters. But some of these guys I had been working with for 7 years. 7 years.
That's a long time.
Before they agreed to do this experiment. And of course it happened because one of my firefighting brothers at the age of 33, his cholesterol was 344, and he had a horrendous family history of men in his family perishing before the age of 50. So he was game to give it a try. And so he and the whole crew at Fire Station 2 on the C shift, I challenged them to do it for 28 days. And 28 days later, the results spoke for themselves. And then we continued this for another almost 7 years. Before I left.
So they stayed. So it wasn't just that you worked with them for 4 weeks to bring their cholesterol numbers down as a group. I love the way that you guys did it as a group to really be supportive of your firefighting brother there, who is in
second family.
It's beautiful. Yeah. But so they stayed though for the next 7 years. You kept Engine 2 in Austin, Texas. You kept this group of firefighters vegan. Plant-based.
I was there. And so what happened is there's a lot of people that you promote or you retire, or if people get injured, they go to dispatch or something like that. But whoever came into Fire Station 2, they knew that if you were coming in, this is the culture that you were coming into. You were coming into a plant-strong culture that ate this way for lunch, dinner, breakfast, and lunch on the way out, because we're there 24 hours. And you also, we worked out hard, and we did a nice CrossFit workout every afternoon, as long as we, weren't making a fire or doing an emergency medical call in the afternoon. So it was a healthy bunch of plant-strong Texas firefighters.
And I'm wondering, after you take this group of really testosterone strong men who are basically living together in a firehouse, when you take them plant strong and they see the results and they stay plant strong, do their families go plant strong then as well? Because usually there's some kind of ripple effect, because, you can talk to people about veganism all you want, but really people just want to see if you're looking good and dropping weight. And if you are, that's when they start thinking like, oh, I wonder if that's going to be for me.
Oh yeah. There was all kinds of spillover that spilled over into their wives and into their children. That's a natural extension of what happens, right? Especially when in 28 days, when you lose 14 pounds, when your cholesterol comes down 100 points, like it did for this one guy, when you're sleeping better, increase in energy, you just, all of a sudden your skin looks healthier. When your sex life improves, all that, those are all good reasons.
Yeah. And I'll sort of take the opposite approach of what you're saying. Those are great reasons. And the opposite are really bad reasons to stay with your diet. So I feel very compassionate towards men who've been sold a bill of goods that you have to eat these foods that make you horrendously sick to be a man. And that means that your sex life is cut short, and your life in general, if you have heart disease and diabetes and high cholesterol, so it's very unfair. Marketing has done them a huge disservice. And I wonder if you could talk about how they kind of got over that mental hurdle that it's still manly to eat plants.
Well, so it's funny because we got ridiculed by so many of the other fire stations in the Austin, Texas Fire Department. But at some point, it's kind of about leadership, and myself and this other guy, JR. I think that we did a pretty good job kind of leading the crew and setting a good example. And these guys had seen me, for example, even when as a firefighter at the age of 40, coming out of the water first on ESPN at the Xterra World Championships in Maui. And so,
hold on, let's get back to that right after break, because I want to hear all about World Championships. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
Oh, it goes so quick. I'm sorry to do that. I'm coming right back to you. I want to hear all about.
And we got 13 more minutes and then we're done, right? So
we can go longer. No. If you've got the time, I've got the time.
I've got time. You just tell me. Yeah.
It's the Elysabeth Alfano Show. Welcome back. Oh, we're going to get right into it because Rip Esselstyn is with me here on the Elysabeth Alfano Show. And right before break, we were talking about the kind of leadership it requires to take an entire engine squad of a firefighter's house and bring them to an all plant-based diet. So tell me about the leadership. You were saying right before break that the other engine squads were kind of making fun of Engine 2 in Austin, Texas, where you took everybody plant-based, but you guys prevailed.
Well, I think that you said, wasn't it difficult for these guys that have been kind of fed all the typical marketing hype that, as men, you need meat to be manly and to be strong and to be healthy and all that nonsense. And I think that they were very quickly able to read the tea leaves and realize that, that's a bunch of bunk. They looked at, I think myself and also JR and all these guys were just fantastic human beings, really, to the core they were.
Yeah.
And at some point, I would say after, especially once the other fire stations started making fun of us, at some point you wear it as a badge of pride, right? That, we're not just part of the status quo. And you know what? We're better than that. And if you want to try and make fun of us for eating in a way that is healthier and better and kinder and more compassionate, then bring it on, because we can handle all that you can take. And they brought it on in spades. I mean, you wouldn't believe some of the stuff and the nonsense that we got, but it actually makes your resolve even that much stronger. And I'm sure, you've dealt with it. I deal with it every day. Most of us do, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we know that we're on the right side here, that, this is really our truth. And it checks every imaginable box. And if we all collectively could do something as simple as stop eating animals and eating plants, this whole world, this whole globe would, it would do what's going on right now with COVID, right? With the planet healing, and it's spectacularly fun to think about it.
It is. And I think we're living in very exciting times, because I do think we're going through a little bit of a shift now. We talked about that a little bit in the news, some of the numbers towards plant-based products that are selling, et cetera, Beyond Meat stock, these kind of indicators that the world is changing. But I do think in our lifetime, Rip, you and I are going to see a real shift when younger generations say, I can't believe my grandparents actually ate animals and they treated them this way. And they lived in pandemic times without changing their ways. We talked about a little bit earlier, to really survive a pandemic, you want to be in your best health possible. You want to have the strongest foundation possible. And a plant-based diet is going to do that for you. But even as we talk about this sort of inefficient economic system that is animal agriculture, I'll just remind everybody that there are 7 billion humans on the planet. There are 70 billion land animals that we kill a year for food. They are not social distancing. We are forcing them to be snout to snout, beak to beak, which means that only 10% of the planet is social distancing. The other 90% is not, by our own doing. So clearly, it's not a matter of when will we have another pandemic. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And there's nothing to say that there can't be 3 pandemics at once. Doesn't have to be a 1 pandemic town, So, it could get pretty dicey. And in fact, to that note, there are outbreaks of bird flu happening in the United States and swine fever happening in China. So, there's many reasons to switch over to plants for your future and for your health, really.
Well, and I would say that I don't think it's a matter of if, it's a matter of when this world basically goes predominantly plant-based, right? So right now, I would say we're lucky if what we have for probably 6 to 9% of people that are vegetarians / vegans, flexitarians. Yes. But I think over the course of the next, hopefully 20 to 25 years, we're going to eradicate eating meat to where it's down to 20% or less.
I really think so as well.
I think we have to. Otherwise we're basically screwed. Right?
Yes. If you want a safe future, you need a safe food supply. If you want a safe food supply, that's plant-based foods. And then if you want to be healthy, that's plant-based foods. So
and the ultimate irony right now is, unfortunately, that our president doesn't get it, and if anything, signed the bill that he now, it's making it mandatory for meat plants to stay open, in spite of the fact that, all these employees are coming down with COVID-19. And because it is an essential part of the food chain.
Not essential for me.
For getting protein.
Not essential for you.
No, it's not. And as you said earlier, and I think it bears repeating, is the fact that all protein originates from plants. It doesn't originate from an animal or a pig or a cow or a chicken. It originates from plants, right? And it's also the smartest, most intelligent form of protein. It's not going to mess with your inflammation, leach calcium from your bones, promote heart disease, all these things.
So we don't have much time left for radio, but we're going to keep this interview going for the Awesome Vegans podcast. For our radio folks, I do want to give them some insight into just what you eat every day. So clue us in. Tell us about that breakfast that has 12 different plants in it.
Oh my gosh. Well, so I take my commercialized Rip's Big Bowl cereal that actually will be available online soon on our own website. But that just in and of itself has 4 different varieties of whole grain cereals. It's got walnuts, And then with that, I add I microwave frozen blueberries, peaches, raspberries, blackberries. All these are frozen. And I throw them in the microwave for maybe 35 seconds. Throw that into my bowl. And then I do a scoop of ground flaxseed meal, chia seeds, and hemp hearts. And then I do an oat-based milk. So there you have it.
So it's sort of a smoothie.
No, well, but I just want you to know, and your listeners aren't going to like me for this. I'm not a fan of smoothies. We're supposed to masticate our food. Your digestive process starts in the mouth when you chew, and I find that it's way too easy for people to take in liquid calories because our brain and our stomach don't register those calories as calories. So one of the things that we do in our workshops and our immersion programs is we teach people why we want to masticate and chew our food. And the predominant thing we want to drink is water, right?
Yes.
We don't want to drink alcohol. We don't want to drink smoothies. We don't want to drink, soda pops. We don't want to drink, muscle milk protein shakes. All that stuff adds up. And most Americans, believe it or not, Elizabeth, are drinking 1,000 liquid calories a day. 1,000
in the form of Coca-Cola or orange juice,
all of it. Your smoothie, your green juice, your glass of alcohol, your apple juice, your coffee with sugar and creamer. It all adds up in a hurry.
Well, so I'm just going to add to that because you and I have similar breakfasts, although I am no Rip Esselstyn, that's for sure. But I take tofu, and I add chia seeds, which I love, and then I add whatever berries I've got, usually raspberries, but blueberries or strawberries, whatever I've got. A half a cup of raw oats. I love raw oats, and a tablespoon of date syrup. And it's so fast. It's got gobs of protein. It's got fiber. It's got omega-3s and 6s. I love it.
So what do you put it in a bowl and eat it?
Yeah.
What do you do? And then is the tofu raw or is it cooked? It's raw. So is it extra firm? Is it firm?
I like extra firm because I don't want it to kind of fall apart on me. And soft tofu won't fall apart on you, but it goes towards the creamier side, and I want it to be chunky. And it's fast. I mean, this is another thing. I don't have time in the morning for breakfast, so it has to like go. But you and I are on the same page about breakfast, which I just love.
Well, that sounds delicious, and it sounds sweet, which is right up my alley. So nicely
date
done.
Syrup. Huge fan of date syrup because it's just dates and water simmered together. So you've still got, it's doesn't turn over quickly to sugar. It's lower glycemic level. And so you and I can go on for a while, and we will, because you're going to stick around for the podcast. But right before the radio show ends, I do want to give people a chance to follow you and be a part of your Plant-Strong Primer, which is happening May 15th to May 17th, right online, of course, during COVID times. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's a primer into all things plants. It's for anyone that wants to either begin, maintain, or thrive on their plant-based journey. We're basically inviting anybody to gather your family and join the Esselstyn family as we all shelter in place and we really hone in on the things that can improve your plant-based lifestyle. It's going to be live. It's going to be this great expert guided interactive experience for people. It's going to be so inspirational. We're going to have yoga in the mornings. We're going to have music guests. You're not going to believe some of the transformational stories that you're going to hear. We got the science from my father, from Dr. Will Bolshewitz, who I talked about, that just wrote Fiber Fueled, that wants you to eat 30 different types of whole plant-based foods every week. And then all kinds of practical application with my sister Ann and my sister Jane, my mother Ann, and myself, where you're going to basically be able to follow. We're going to send out the recipes with the ingredients, and you can follow along and make these different breakfast, lunches, and dinner. It's going to be a Friday evening. It'll be most of the day Saturday, most of the day Sunday. And then we're also going to have all kinds of solutions to hurdles that people have with going plant-based, your neighbor, or how do I don't have time, it's too expensive, doesn't taste good, my in-laws aren't supportive, my wife's not supportive. We hear everything, and we address all of that. I want you to know that we have 3 different price points that people can lean in, right? Depending upon the experience that they want to have. We start out at $37 for the bean sprout experience. Then at $77, we have the Brussels sprout experience. $97 is for the broccoli crown. And then for people that need financial assistance, right, that are unemployed or healthcare workers or emergency care workers, we also will take care of you. So I would encourage you, just go to primer.plantstrong.com and you can read all about the weekend. But it is going to be, it'll be a very fun, interactive online weekend in this time of social distancing. Yeah.
Okay, everybody. So you have your marching orders. You want to get your plant-based on? Well, come on. Here's how to do it. So primer.plantstrong.com. Before we go and we end our segment with you, just tell everybody super fast, what's your exercise that you do every day?
You know, the exercise I do every day now, because the swimming pools are closed, I've been biking.
I love it. We'll be right back after break. Rip, thanks for being with me. I super appreciate it.
Let's do it again.
Everybody, that's the end of the radio show, but it is not the end of this interview. So we get to go into now a little more relaxed. Radio's crazy because you have to break for commercials. Oh my gosh. If some of the stuff we might backtrack on, if that's okay, because they're really deep subjects, and then some of the stuff we can just kind of paddle our way through. I'm wondering how The Game Changers has changed your life, because you were an executive producer of that film. Of course, it's all about you and Engine 2, and not all about, but it has you and Engine 2 in the movie, sort of replicating what you went through with your team. And, it's been a huge success. So how has your life changed because of the film? And how have you seen your communities around you really gravitate towards plant-based because of the film?
Well, The Game Changers, wow, I'm trying to think where to start with that. I think first let me start out just by saying that the thing that really kind of changed my life, I would say, and helped put the Esselstyn family and put what I was doing at the fire station on the map was Forks Over Knives. So Forks Over Knives really was the first game changer, if you will, when it came to moving the needle and getting people to go, wow, maybe there is something to eating plants. Now, The Game Changers, that film was such a God, wow, what a passion project that was. And, James Wilkes came to me in 2013 and asked if I would be involved with the project, if I would be a financial contributor to the project. And so I've seen that film. I've seen all the sweat and blood and tears that James Wilkes and Joseph Pace and many others have put into making this come to fruition. It didn't come out, as really until 2019. Right. We were hoping it would come out in 2015, 16.
Oh, wow.
So I am so excited to finally have it be out into the universe. And yeah, it's amazing. It's amazing how many people, it's one of the most watched documentaries on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
I think the one that probably just beat it was Tiger King. But before Tiger King came along, right, exactly. I think Game Changers really is set a new bar for documentaries, and it hasn't even gone into China and I think India yet, and some of these other countries where it's going to really do really, really well. But so many people stop me. So many different fire departments call now to ask if we can do the same thing in their fire and with their fire departments, because so many firefighters are overweight. They're riddled with type 2 diabetes. These are supposed to be superheroes. And the reality is these superheroes have the exact same addictions to food that everybody else does, if not worse, because the environment in the firehouses and the kitchens of these fire stations is so insanely toxic. And it is so kind of male oriented. And these men are so leaning into paleo and keto and more meat that they're in trouble. So we're getting reached out to constantly. We just did a great service for the city of Pittsburgh, where we worked with the fire, EMS, and police, and they went on the 7-day rescue challenge and had phenomenal results. But we're looking to do a lot more stuff like what we did with the city of Pittsburgh, and using that as a template. But I love the Game Changers. I love what the Game Changers is doing to change the game. I think that they tell the story in a very, very compelling, fast-paced, energetic way that makes the lifestyle very, very appealing, which is how it is.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. Yeah.
And they do a really funny section about erectile dysfunction and, relatively speaking, young men. So it's not that these men have erectile dysfunction, but they're showing them how much stronger it could be for them if they were plants only. And it's really fun to see the kids kind of go through it, but to see the math for themselves and to see them in their face and also their jokes reach out to a better life. That's what actually everyone is doing in the film, is they're reaching out to a better way for them to be able to live their best lives, to be their best selves, to get the most out of life. You talk about firefighters. I don't know how they do it, to be in ill health and then go into a hot burning building where the conditions are even more stressful on your body. And police as well. I can see why you work with policemen. And I'm just so happy that you're getting the message out to men like the Game Changers does, because as I said before, I do think they've been sold an unfortunate bill of goods. And it's one of the reasons I'm looking forward to the world shifting to plant-based, as we discussed, as more and more products sell, because when there are fewer meat products and more plant-based products, and more companies make more money from plant-based products, which they will, because meat and dairy is inefficient and a god-awful stupid business equation. It's not good business, just apart from the health and the animals. You're going to see advertising budgets shift. And when advertising budgets shift, you're going to see just how manly it is to eat plants.
Yeah, exactly. No, it is funny. I mean, listen, you said it at the opening here. Look at what Beyond Meat has done, up 23%, and since yesterday, all that. But the grocery shelves have changed dramatically since, for example, I joined with Whole Foods in 2009. I mean, it's crazy, all the different options that are out there now. When we had our first foray into this with the Engine 2 food line, and we had at one point 50 different products on Whole Foods shelves across 15 different categories. We were like one of the few players in town. And now it is like, it's crazy. Ben & Jerry's just introduced, maybe a year ago, 9 different flavors of plant-based ice creams. You've got,
and they're super good.
Of course. But you've got all Diet Cheese is not just the only player when it comes to cheeses, Beyond Meat, Impossible Burgers. I mean, there are so many other different plant-based burgers that are littering the shelves. Pizzas that are plant-based. Earth Balance spreads. All the. I mean, when I started this in 2009, there was soy milk and almond milk, and that was it. And now there's probably, no joke, 15 different varieties, from macadamia to flaxseed to walnut to cashew. You go on, all these milks, all these yogurts, all these ice creams. It is the fastest growing space in the grocery store, arena.
Yes, I want to hop on there with some statistics for people. So,
please.
The plant-based milk industry is 14% of the entire milk section. So that's an enormous amount of real estate in the grocery store, and also percentage of sales. I've heard numbers as high as 15 to 19%, but those haven't been confirmed. Regardless, there's a huge chunk. And plant-based creamers, plant-based yogurts, and plant-based ice cream are all right behind. I mean, they're not 14% of the market, but they're growing to the tune of between 30 and 60%, depending on which product you're talking about, the ice cream versus the creamer versus the yogurts. Chobani just came out with a plant-based yogurt. So dairy is really very much ahead of the game game. Plant-based meats are still only 1% of a $1.4 trillion market, which is the meat market. So very small base, but as we talked about, growing, 200% week over week, that kind of stuff. So it's a very interesting time. I do want to just backtrack on something. I believe that Game Changers is going to China this month. I think it's just about to be released there, which is very exciting. And we did mention Tiger King. I would be remiss if I did not say, for the love of God, what's the point of watching that? And don't take it from me. You really want to watch Bill Maher. Just go ahead and Google Bill Maher and how he handles Tiger King, and he really tells it like it is. So I appreciate him for that. I'm wondering if you sort of have tips for people on exactly how to start. Like sometimes it's just that first week that is almost the toughest for people.
Yeah. Well, in my first book, The Engine 2 Diet, I offer people two different paths to go down depending upon your personality. And if you're the type of person that likes to jump all in, then you can do that, right? And it's a 4-week program. I have the firefighter and the fire cadet programs. The firefighter, on day one, you basically eliminate all the contraband. You eliminate the meat, the dairy, extracted oils. We're not a fan of extracted oils on Engine 2 either. And then you also eliminate the processed, refined, kind of what we call crap, right? Calorie-rich and processed foods. If you want to go the fire cadet route, you're a little more cautious in nature. You like dipping your toes in the water. Then week by week by week, we encourage you to eliminate. First week, you eliminate all meat. Second week, all meat and all dairy. And then the third week, all meat, all dairy, and all processed refined foods. But what I found, and don't make it harder than it has to be. I mean, you can just do oatmeal in the morning with some toppings that you like. You can do a sweet potato with a side of pinto beans for lunch, and then dinner can be rice and beans with some avocado on top and some sliced tomatoes and all kinds of wonderful stuff. But this doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be time consuming, and just like try it on for size for a week or 2 or 3 or 4, and you won't believe the results. But what I have found, Elizabeth, and I want to just put this out there to your listeners, is that where you get the biggest bang for your buck is when you go all in, right? When you kind of like, when you put your right toe in and then your left toe in and you kind of dab in it,
dance.
You don't ever get, that incredible weight loss. You don't, basically your palate never becomes sophisticated enough to where you're not, craving the cheese or the steak or whatever. You don't get that drop in cholesterol of 50 or 75 points if you happen to be checking your biometrics. So that's why, I've now for 10 years been throwing typically 2 to 4 times a year these 7-day immersion programs where we test people on the way in and then we test them on the way out, and they can see in just 7 days what happens. And it's why my third book is called The Engine 2 7-Day Rescue Diet, where you can learn to rescue yourself, right? You're not getting rescued by a doctor, and you're not getting rescued by, your parents or your friends. You're rescuing yourself simply by changing the foods that you eat. And in 7 days, your jaw will hit the ground when you see what happens with weight loss, with cholesterol drop, with the drop in your fasting glucose if you have any kind of pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes. And I now have over 2,000 different data points, meaning individuals that have gone through, that we've tracked. We have all the data. And if you follow the program always works. And the beautiful thing is people can do this at home, and we have it all laid out for free on plantstrong.com.
And the beautiful thing is really that you're not committing yourself to a life of pills.
No.
What could be better? You're getting healthy. Well, you do the thing you love, which is eat. I mean, everybody loves to eat. And a lot of what you already eat, you don't even know or you never thought about it before, but you love hummus, you love guacamole, lots of things, rice and beans. I mean, people live on that and they don't need essential quote unquote meat. I mean, cultures have been born on rice and beans. So I think it's just great that this is actually a really fun endeavor. And we're all COVIDing at home, I like to say. So we're all cooking a little bit more. So, there's no better time really to get your plant-based on. But let me ask you where you come down, because we were talking about it, Beyond Meat, Impossible Burger, Daya. Where do you come down on these pretty processed plant-based foods.
Yeah. So first, let me say that Ethan is a good friend, right? And
Okay, well, wait, I'll take that. I see your good friend, and I'll raise you. Ethan launched plant-based Beyond Meat sausage in my kitchen. Just
wow,
saying.
wow.
Yeah.
So are you in LA?
I split my time between Chicago and Los Angeles.
Nice.
Yeah.
So I love what Ethan is doing. I love his passion. I love the reason why he started Beyond Meat. Right.
I love Ethan.
Right. Yeah. I mean, Ethan is he's truly a remarkable man. And what he's done with that business is phenomenal. I will say that for and what we have discovered is that for people that are trying to lose copious amounts of weight, for people that are trying to reverse their heart disease, their hypertension, their insulin resistance, their diabetes, these foods have no place, right, in your kitchen. Now, for people that are trying to get off the standard American diet, for people that are wanting to eat more plant-based, I think these serve a fantastic. There's a fantastic place for the Dia, for the Impossible, for the Beyond Meat products. But we have them several times a year. Usually, it's birthdays or special occasions. So I think that if you can, depending upon your health, if you can relegate these things to special occasions, I think that's absolutely fine. But in my opinion, the Beyond Meat sausage for breakfast, the Beyond Meat, burger for lunch, and then a pizza with diet cheese for dinner. It's all plant-based, but your health is probably not going to be where you want it.
Yeah, I'll sort of chime in there and completely agree with you. I've had Dr. Kim Williams on my show. He's the past president of the American College of Cardiology and also the current chief of Rush Medical Center's cardiology department in Chicago. And he says that 97% of Americans are heart unhealthy, which is God only knows what that's going to do to Medicare when everybody gets to be 65 and sick. Everyone's sick all at the same time. But he also likes to say that these foods are transition foods, which we've heard a lot of doctors say. So you wouldn't want to stay there on your way out of a meat and dairy diet. You'd want to sort of transition through them and use them as helping stepping stones to getting to a whole foods plant-based diet. But on the scale of life, they are better than meat and dairy in that they're going to be the same for sodium, give or take, same for calories, give or take, same for saturated fat, give or take, same for fat, I should say, give or take. They're going to have the same amount of protein, which is a good thing. But the plant-based stuff is going to have no cholesterol. It's going to have no TMAO, trimethylene N-oxide, which is bad for us. It's going to have no animal heme. It's also not going to have antibiotics and hormones and all that stuff thrown in. So it's a step in the right direction and or a treat, depending on how you see it. So, I mean, we do have them on occasion. I love to cook, so I like to make things out of tempeh and just season it up, and then that's my meat sauce, So I use a lot of seasoned tempeh in my recipes. But for those of you who don't have time to mess around in the kitchen, these items really do have their place, and they are a step in the right direction. That's my take.
Yep. I will say, too, that, one of the things, the Impossible Burger does have the heme iron in it.
It has plant heme.
Yeah. Yes.
So as I understand it, and I could have this wrong, so please jump in if I've got it wrong. It has plant heme, and studies haven't shown, there's just not enough information if it's going to act like animal heme or not.
Yeah. I can't speak to that, but I also know that that I believe the Impossible Burger uses GMO ingredients, and one of the things about Ethan and Beyond Meat is they don't use any GMO.
Right. And no soy. I mean, I'm a huge fan of soy.
Exactly.
I'm a huge fan of soy personally. It's, 9 essential amino acids. But yes, a lot of people have that in their head that they don't want soy. So there's that option as well. Now, I'm a fan of Beyond Meat for sure. And I have to say I'm a fan of Impossible as well.
Yeah. Listen.
They all have their place.
Yeah. But I speaking of soy, I would like to say that, on the Engine 2 programs, we're fine with soy. We just want to make sure that it's as unprocessed as possible. So, tofu, tempeh, edamame. But the more processed it gets, when you hexane extract out, the protein, and you're making these nuggets out of soy protein isolates and concentrates, that actually triggers the IGF-1, the insulin-like growth factor, which can be problematic. So we want to be careful with the highly processed soy products.
I love that you say that, and thank you for that clarification. What I'll say here to all my listeners is please read the labels. You have to advocate for yourself. You can't wait for government or even doctors to do it for you. You have to read your labels and start getting familiar with the things that are bad for you and the things that are good for you. So when we talk about soy, we are talking about, like Rip said so articulately, we're talking about tempeh and tofu and these kind of whole edamame, these kind of whole soy products. But when you start really processing it to be like soy protein isolate, then it's a different entity altogether. Where do you come down on TVP, textured vegetable protein?
Yes. Yeah. Too processed.
Too processed.
Yeah. But let me just speak to it for a sec more on soy, because I have a whole chapter in one of my books on soy, and that is that it's not the enemy of the state. And what I think that women in particular should know is that, and they talk about this in the Game Changers a little bit, is that soy actually has the potential to block the hormonally active receptors so that it actually can regulate the estrogen, for example, in women's bodies. And a lot of women are afraid that, it's going to raise estrogen levels and then it'll increase their chances for breast cancer. And the reality is just the opposite. And you look at some cultures like, the Okinawans, you look at rural China, where they have usually an ounce to 2 ounces of whole soy on average a day. And they are very well protected from the breast cancer and the prostate cancer. And I like to tell people that, I've been eating soy for 34 plus years now, and this is just very anecdotal, but I don't have man boobies and my testicles have not shriveled up one bit. So
I am so happy that we have clarification on this, because we were all deeply wondering. I will add to your anecdotal evidence that, yay, look at that kale. Oh, and look at that triathlete body. Good for you. I'll add that all of Asia, 50% of Asia is men, and they eat soy every day. And I've never seen an Asian with, they're very slender and lean. So I wouldn't say that man boobs are popping up all over Asia either. More anecdotal evidence here on the Awesome Vegans Influencer Series. Okay, so I want to sing your praises and then wrap up with a couple questions, just in case you haven't wrapped your mind around all that Rip does. Oh my God. So you have the Engine 2 diet book. You have Plant-Strong book. You have the Engine 2 7-Day Rescue Diet book, all of these New York Times bestsellers. You have I'm calling it a summit, but really it's a primer, the Plant-Strong primer, coming up May 15th to May 17th, which is kind of a family reunion with your father, who is the groundbreaking visionary who in the 80s put together the research that says you can reverse heart disease without pills and a plant-strong diet, a whole foods, plant-based diet, really groundbreaking research there. And he's going to be with you and your family and your Plant-Strong primer event, May 15th to the 17th. And I know that your Plant-Strong podcast. You have that as well. So
the Plant-Strong podcast. We also have the Engine 2 Plant-Strong food line.
Yes, of course. Thank you. I knew I was forgetting something. And I think of the Engine 2 Plant-Strong food line of your granola is my most favorite and my go-to. But you have a pasta line, I believe. You have so many products in the Engine 2 food.
We do, but I need to let you know it's going to be pared down here shortly, especially as we take a lot of this outside of Whole Foods and onto e-commerce, right?
Okay.
This whole COVID-19 thing has really illustrated to us how important it is for us to have an e-commerce presence with some of the food products, and so we're making that happen. It should be available in the middle of June.
And would that be on your site or a different site?
That'll be on our site. It also will probably be on Amazon as well. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So add it to the list, everybody, of things you want to get from Rip. You want to go to the Plant-Strong Primer program. You want to get his books. And of course, you want his Engine 2 food. Don't be crazy. Of course you do. So my exit question for you then today is a couple of quickies. Well, the first one isn't so quick, but what do you wish you knew 10 years ago that you know now?
Oh, wow. There's a lot of things. I wish I knew all the mistakes that I would make along the way when it comes specifically to the food line, right? And because there's so many killer products that we came up with that never made it to shelf due to just these a few little things. And if things would have changed, we'd have frozen pizza, we'd have waffles, we'd have all these other things, we'd have the best baked chips that are out there, and that really bothers me that we don't have that kind of an assortment and variety of products on the shelf. Everything else is just hard work, right? Just knowing how much hard work goes into it. Make sure that you align yourself with people that are in alignment with the vision, with the lifestyle. There's people. I made some bad hires.
Tricky business.
Yep. Early on, but now I feel like the team is tight. The loyalty is insane. I love the team that I've assembled. Whether it's our immersion programs, whether it's our online meal planner, whether it's our online coaching programs, whether it's working with my family at all of our events and programs, and now this online summit. But I think the other thing is one of the things that was really rough was the number of days that I was gone from my family. Not only my wife, but also at the time, my two kids, my son and my daughter, and now my third daughter. And this COVID-19 has really made me appreciate staying home, staying put. I mean, as a firefighter, I was at the fire station between 100 and 125 days a year.
Yeah, a third of a year.
A third of a year. As a kind of healthy eating ambassador for Whole Foods, I was going around 80 to 120 days a year, and I was out of town. So I was on an airplane out of town, visiting team members, visiting customers, doing events. So this is really, if I go back in time, I'd probably do that a little bit differently, because that's just, you can't get those days back.
Yeah, you don't get that back. But in a way, there's some odd silver linings for people during COVID-19. And of course, on the Jane Unchained station and the Awesome Vegans Influencer series, our heart goes out to everybody who is suffering. And so many people are suffering, in addition to the economic suffering that goes with the being separated from family, or perhaps people are sick. But in this odd, strange world that we are, people are finding sometimes these silver linings. And for some, it really is a joy to be back with family without much else going on. I mean, it can get on your nerves too, but it is rare time that we have together. And this has been rare time that we have together. I do have one last exit question, if you're willing to share. This one is a one-word answer. When you go off the rails, and I bet you so rarely do, what's your go-to junk food? Oh my God, he has to think about it. That tells you that he doesn't do it.
No, I would say it is a scoop or two of some sort of a plant-based ice cream. Like for example, last night my wife had a bowl of Nadamu chocolate fudge ice cream or chocolate peanut butter, and I had 2 bites and then I stopped, because I'm the kind of guy that if I have, I'll eat the whole pint. So I just try not to go there anymore.
Oh, you're
I've
so
learned.
disciplined. Yeah, same for me. One cookie means 12 cookies, and one bite of ice cream means the whole pint. Caramel ice cream, send me your caramel ice cream recommendations, plant-based, of course, because that's my jam for sure. Rip, I want to thank you for being with me. Thank you for all that you do. Thank you for all the information that you share, that you give to people so that they can have a better, stronger, plant-strong life, but basically a healthier life for them so that they get more out of life. People always say to me, oh, are you sure you really want to be on this vegan thing, Elysabeth? Because we're all living longer. And I say, well, you're not living longer, you're dying longer. Yeah, you haven't passed away, but your life is filled with pills and you can't go hiking with your kids. And, I mean, what the heck? So you really want to get the most out of your life. And Rip, you've really helped so many people do that. So thank you so very much.
Well, thank you, Elysabeth. And you are a shining example of what plant-strong can look like, what veganism can look like. And thank you for all the work that you're doing to get the word out. It is enviable, and it's so great to finally meet you.
I know it's strange that we haven't crossed paths before, but where are you located?
I'm in Austin, Texas.
You still are not. I wasn't sure if you were retired and had moved somewhere else. Okay, you are still in Austin, Texas. Well, I'll get there. I'll come find you in person when COVID is all over, because it would be great to see you in person as well.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Plantstrong.com and primer.plantstrong.com. Both websites, I believe, are going to have all the information you want for May 15th to May 17th to get your plant-based on. You can do it. This interview is now over, but Rip, stay put. I'll be right back with you. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate